Hey GED students, it's GED question of the daytime. Reading this problem, it says write the equation of a line. Write the equation of a line. So they're asking us to create an equation. In slope-intercept form, they tell us what that equation should look like. It's in a certain form with a slope of -1 and a y-intercept of -2. All right, I hope that you watched our last question of the day video, which introduced this concept, writing equations of a line. But I will remind you that the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line is on your GED formula sheet, so you don't have to memorize it. So GED formula sheet alert. If you've got it memorized, well, lucky you. But even if you don't, if you struggle with memorization, it's right there on there. And it says this. On the GED formula sheet, you will see that the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line says y equals mx plus b. And I'll just remind you that right now, with all these letters this way, this is a generic equation of a line. It describes any line. If you want it to describe a specific line, what you need to do is you need to replace m and b with numbers. And you might say, well, what numbers should I put in there? Well, m stands for something. M stands for slope. Turns out that whatever number is up there multiplying with x is the slope of your line. And b stands for something as well. B stands for y-intercept. Now this is the part that isn't on your formula sheet, what the m and the b mean. So this is the part you'll need to remember. Now lucky you, it helps if you know the name of this thing. We said it was the slope-intercept form, and it's called the slope-intercept form because m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So use that to help you remember what those letters stand for. Okay, so basically what I need to do is start with the equation of a line and replace my m with the slope of my line and replace the b with my y-intercept. And lucky me, they've told me both of these things. Take a look at what they told me. They told me my slope. They said my slope is -1. And they told me my y-intercept. They said my y-intercept is -2. So watch me plug into this, and I want to show you how this is correct, but not quite done. Let's talk about that. So the first thing I see is that my m, my slope, is -1. So I'll replace the m with that known value of -1. Now I'll leave my x be. I can leave my plus b, but I leave my plus alone, I should say. But then I have this letter b I'm supposed to replace. The b is the y-intercept, and I know that my y-intercept is -2. Now this is absolutely true. However, it is not what we call simplified. In math, we try to have our final math answers unless we're asked to do otherwise in the most simple form imaginable. Like we try to simplify everything we can simplify. And I see a couple of things I can simplify here. The first thing is this. -1 times x. I know what -1 times x is. And you might be thinking, Kate, I don't know what -1 times x is. And I would argue that if you thought about what -1 does, you might be able to figure it out. So let's come over here and think about the number -1. So let's imagine -1 times 5. Well, what is that? It's just -5. All that -1 does is change 5's sign. Well, what if you times it by another number, like -1 times 17? Well, I'd just get -17. So since x is just a number, it ought to behave the same way. If when you take a number like 5, 17, or x and multiply it by -1, all that happens is it changes its sign. See, 5 turned into -5, 17 turned into -17. Then multiplying x by -1 ought to give me the opposite of x, -x. And so that is what I'm going to write under here. It's not that -1x was wrong, it's just that it wasn't as simple as I could possibly write it. So -1 times x is just -x. Wonderful. The other thing that I see that's not simplified is this, plus minus. Mathematicians never write two symbols in a row when one will do. So you need to be aware that adding a negative number, like adding a $2 charge onto your account, is the same as taking that amount out, just subtracting 2. So there's no reason to write plus minus when you could just write -2. Okay, so here is the simplified version of this equation of a line. Now, a lot of students panic here, like, I don't know what to do from here. You don't do anything from here. All they asked you to do was write the equation of a line All you have to do to turn your equation into a specific one is replace m and b and simplify if there's any simplifying to do. And so I am done. This is my final answer. All right, we'll be seeing some trickier problems in the days to come. Be sure to stay tuned for those. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about this or any other GED math concept, be sure to drop it in the comments and I'll do my best to answer it.